Our topic for week 2 is types of syllabuses. And I have to give credit for some help from Danielle Little and Carolyn G. For some of the slides. Okay, so quiz time. This is from Danielle and Carolyn. What were some of the popular methods of the 20th century? And this is from Richards, based on Richards chapter 1. So a very quick review that also translates into some of the issues that we are discussing in types of syllabuses. So there was the grammar translation method, the direct method, the structural method, the reading method, also called the lexical approach today, the audiolingual method, the situational method, and the communicative approach. So this as a little backdrop, and we will revisit some of this later. Okay, Chapter 2, Richards, Danielle and Carolyn summarize that it deals with the changing needs for foreign languages in Europe, the rise of ESP, English for specific purposes, and that could be English for academic purposes. It could be, but back then originally it was English for business. Then it became English for technology, for engineering, but also as it relates to technology in many cases, English for medicine and English for legal purposes. This came along with the needs analysis that started in ESP because, as it became very evident, those learners had very different needs from those that were learning general English. So in general English teaching, it was mostly a communicative approach that was used, and slowly a curriculum approach in language teaching started to develop, also influenced by business, as we will see in Nation and McAllister, with a SWOT analysis. I've posted on that in the week 1 forum. Okay, so we are looking at types of syllabuses this week. And just as a quick review, there are several elements mentioned for each of these syllabuses. We will go into more depths regarding the strengths and weaknesses and the advantages and disadvantages of several of those in a later week. So for now, it's just a quick overview, because as you start to develop your curriculum, you need to start thinking about the syllabus that fits your learning situation and teaching situation best. So, let's do a quick review. The grammatical syllabus, or also called structural syllabus, is organized around grammatical items. So, patterns need to be selected to support the amount of teaching time available. That is often around tenses, passive voice. It's also structured according to the proficiency of the learner, whether it's level 1, beginning, or an advanced class. So this addresses number 2. Items are arranged in a sequence that facilitates learning. A range of grammatical items is identified that allows for development of communicative skills. So at the beginning, grammar was underlying the communicative approach. Then it went by the wayside. In fact, a lot of communicative programs were no longer teaching grammar at all. Grammar was sort of banned from the program and from the curriculum altogether. As you might think, the pendulum swung back again, as the learners indicated a strong need and desire for learning grammar, and thus the practitioners, the teachers, needed to put it back into the syllabus and into the curriculum. So, but still, programs are grappling with where does it belong? Is it its own area to be taught, or is it to be taught in conjunction with writing or reading, or in other configurations? Okay, so in Chapter 6 in Richards, there is a grammatical syllabus that is a little bit older, and it was underlying a typical first-year EFL course. Okay, trying to make this short to stay within a 15-minute time frame, so we're going to be looking at a lot of information in a very short time. The lexical syllabus, as it says, is based on the lexicon, and a target lexicon or vocabulary is identified as to be taught. So at various levels there are word limits, and this is very much based on Nation's work, and we will look at that again later, or you may visit it in the links this week. The functional syllabus is organized around communicative functions such as requesting, complaining, suggesting, agreeing, disagreeing, expressing polite requests, expressing disappointment, etc. All of those have very special formulaic expressions that we use in English, in any language for that matter. And so that came into vogue in the 1980s. Okay, so as you can see, there are several categories of functions. Socializing is a very important one, and thus these functions are often taught at first in a conversational area, but then later on when you need to show that you want to take a turn and express your desire to take a turn, you need to learn how to do that in an academic setting as well. The topic or theme-based syllabus is a part of the content-based syllabus. And content-based teaching, well, for now, I'll just focus on the topic or theme-based syllabus. That is actually what we're doing in our IEP. When you look at textbooks, they're organized around particular topics in a chapter. And so that is the content that is being taught. In terms of vocabulary, grammatical items are also organized around this topic or theme. Different syllabuses can be linked this way across different levels. You could have a theme ongoing through different levels, but the vocabulary would be at higher levels in each higher proficiency. Okay, so there are some examples here of themes that you may look at. These I simply took from some of the textbooks that we have here and some of the themes that I myself have developed. So, for example, the course Milestones in U.S. History I taught several times, and it was very much a content-based or theme-based course. And it was actually preceded by some instruction on the geography of the United States. Also with some games that really helped the students understand and learn the geography. It was very, very successful, and I should teach that again. The Hound of the Baskervilles, a novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, about Sherlock Holmes, was another very successful course that I taught. Same thing with Steinbeck's The Pearl, which I taught several summers, and very successfully developed a content-based syllabus for that. A skills-based syllabus is what we have mostly in our IEP underlying the themes. So there is, first of all, a theme, and then skills that students have to master in each unit. So these skills are based on the belief that learning is a complex activity. There are the 4 macro skills that you're familiar with of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Each of those has micro skills, and we will revisit this at a later time when you actually need to build your syllabus. But this is something very important that you need to consider in thinking about your own syllabus in the future. Okay, so there are some examples here. Listening to a lecture, if that is the topic. There are several micro skills that relate to macro skills. For example, in listening, the students need to recognize key information. They need to be able to use discourse markers to identify the flow of discourse. In fact, they need to recognize those discourse markers. Obviously, they need to be able to follow rapid speech in a lecture, and they need to be able to distinguish between main ideas and supporting points. You may have noticed that I used the term must be able to. That is specifically how we express objectives, and that is what we will be doing again later when you have to write objectives. Okay, in writing, an example would be taking notes, and this is what I teach in my writing and reading classes using the Cornell method, which is divided into main ideas, supporting points, examples, facts, and details. Students need to be able to use abbreviations and symbols, and very importantly, paraphrase or summarize key points. And you may review these micro skills in speaking and reading on your own. I'm going to move on. Okay, a task-based syllabus, that is not so old. This is about 10 years old, sometimes also called a project-based syllabus, although there are differences between tasks and projects, projects being much more comprehensive, longer term. Okay, so there are 2 types of tasks, real-world tasks and pedagogical tasks, and you can see the examples here. These tasks are very important in adult education, but of course they're just as important in general English courses in a curriculum just like in our IEP. We do have real-world tasks. Reading a map and giving directions, that would be at a lower level. Reading a set of instructions and assembling an item, again at a lower level. Conducting a survey at a higher level. Interviewing a person at the intermediate or at a higher level. Conducting a search of internet and library information, that would be at a higher level. So these are good examples that you could build into your own syllabus later on. Pedagogical tasks, you see some examples here: jigsaw, information gap, problem solving, decision making, and opinion exchange. A situational syllabus is somewhat similar to a task-based syllabus in that it is based on a situation that the students might find themselves in. But it is this syllabus is older, probably from the 1980s, yes. And so the language that is given in this situation relates to that particular situation. So, for example, you would be using specific vocabulary on an airplane, or at an immigration counter, or at a bank, on the telephone, on the street, in the city, and at home. So the vocabulary is driven here by the situation, as are the functional expressions that would be taught. And so the functional syllabus preceded the situational syllabus both in the 1980s, early 1980s, mid-1980s. A text or genre-based syllabus relates the syllabus to a particular text or genre, and thus it might combine different elements or several elements from other types of syllabuses. Okay, and there is an example in Richard's Chapter 6, and we will go into more details of this later. But just know that, or just as an example, the course that I taught on the Pearl was kind of a combination of a theme-based or content-based syllabus and a genre-based syllabus, as we were doing a novel. Okay, so that would be an example of this. Here are some other examples. Exchanges, forms, procedures, information text, story text, all of those are various types of texts. And so in order to write or have students develop information in this particular syllabus, it is important that you set up the functions, you set up the vocabulary and expressions that are necessary for this. And then, of course, the genre itself governs the text type. A competency-based syllabus is based on what students are expected to master. So that could be essential skills, that could be knowledge, like work-oriented information or attitudes or other things. So these would be required for particular tasks and activities, and thus the syllabus would be driven by these competencies that, for example, an employer requires. English for specific purposes, thanks to Danielle and Carolyn. Okay, again, this was from the 1980s. Word frequencies were counted. The register was analyzed, the register of a particular text or information, could have been spoken, as well as the discourse was analyzed regarding the needs, regarding the information and the language in the text that needed to be taught. What you will most likely be creating is an integrated syllabus. So questions that you need to ask: which foci will be central in planning your syllabus? Which will be secondary? So will your syllabus be text-based and skills-based second, or some other combination? And here is your assignment. This is due at the end of week 2. Describe your teaching situation, including the type of program, the learners, and other factors that define the context. Indicate which syllabus would be most appropriate and why. Post your answer in the Sharing What You Learned discussion forum response to the mini recording. I need to correct myself. This is, yes, the context and rationale assignment that is due at the end of this week includes a description of the teaching situation, the type of program, the learners, and other factors. You may or may not want to include an indication of what syllabus would be most appropriate. That would be fine, is not required at this point, but in the response to the mini recording, I would like for you to discuss this. Okay, this ends the recording. Thank you.